The news cycle began over the weekend with this big March for Our Lives that happened in Washington, D.C. Now, approximately 200,000 people showed up in the March for Our Lives. It's a good number. It's a solid number. Okay, the March for Life in 2012 had 650,000 people who showed up to it. Was the media coverage blanket the way that it was on Saturday? Now, listen, I don't think that this is about the kids at Parkland. Kids are kids. Some of them say smart things. Some of them say dumb things. And just because some tragedy fell upon them doesn't mean that they suddenly have expertise on guns, for example. But the main issue here is why the media have decided to highlight and spotlight these kids. And the reason is because the kids can say things that the media can hide behind. The high school kids who don't really know much about guns, don't know much about gun control, but can speak with passion and verve and are attractive on camera, they can say things that the media want to say, but know that they would be bashed about the ears for saying because they are supposed to be objective. And so what the media do instead is they put all of these kids on camera for hours at a time and then claim that if you criticize what these kids are saying, they're actually criticizing the experiences of these kids. This is another form of identity politics. So identity politics is this idiotic concept from the left that suggests that we can identify the quality of your perspective simply by the color of your skin or your ethnicity or your age or some immutable characteristic about yourself. Well, in this particular case, the suggestion is that the opinions of these kids are sacrosanct because these kids experience tragedy. I'm not questioning whether these kids experienced tragedy. They did. But I am questioning whether their perspectives have any additional value because they experienced tragedy. Like George Soros went through the Holocaust, right? He was a guy who ended up having to help the Nazis in order to survive. I can still say that I think all of his political perspectives are sheer garbage. And it doesn't mean that I'm criticizing George Soros' experiences in the Holocaust. And the same thing is true for these kids. Okay, and the stuff the kids were saying was just pretty egregious. One of the things they were doing is they were carrying around these tags, these price tags that said on it $1.05 in order to criticize Senator Marco Rubio. Now, Senator Rubio put himself out there in front of a town hall of baying angry people in order to try and make come to some sort of agreement and solution with people in Florida over what to do to protect kids' safety. And instead, he's been just clubbed around. So these kids were wearing around tags that said $1.05. Why? Because if you take the receipts that Marco Rubio has had from the NRA and you average it over the number of students in the state of Florida, it comes out to $1.05 for each student. Their suggestion is that Marco Rubio is being paid off $1.05 for every student in the state of Florida to be pro-gun. That's disgusting. It's not true. It's a lie. It's malicious. Obviously, it's stupid. If you think that Marco Rubio is pro-gun because the NRA gives him like $5,000, you're out of your mind. Yeah, the idea that Marco Rubio is sitting around waiting for the NRA to sign a check and then he decides to be pro-gun is insulting. I find this whole line of argument really stupid. I found it stupid when it was being pushed by John McCain's campaign finance reform. I find it stupid now. Politicians generally don't support causes because they're being bribed by constituents. They support causes, and then the people who back those causes pay so that those people can get into office. It's not like, if you thought the NRA was just going around bribing people, why is it the Democrats aren't able to be bribed? Why is it the NRA can't go to Democrats and bribe them? Is it because Democrats are such upstanding characters? Or is it because Democrats are pure gun control fanatics and the NRA doesn't want to see them elected? But again, this is all part of the dog and pony show to suggest that people who disagree on gun control are actually bad human beings. And so we're going to go through some of the arguments that were being made by a lot of the kids at this rally, because I think that it's important to look at the arguments, not just at the speakers. What the media want us to see are the still photos of David Hogg with his arm outstretched and Emma Gonzalez standing there silently, and then we're supposed to say, well, anything these people choose to say must be right. Again, I have nothing but sympathy for what they went through. Okay, I have sympathy for what Kyle Kashuv, who's a conservative student, went through. All these kids went through something, but it doesn't mean their experiences confer any sort of expertise upon them. Okay, so we start with David Hogg. David Hogg has been the most ubiquitous member of the cadre of classmates. He's been on virtually every TV show. He's done Ellen. He does CNN on a regular basis. He does the Sunday shows. He doesn't know anything about guns. He doesn't know much about gun control, but he certainly knows how to demagogue. And so for 4 minutes, you'll hear him demagogue over and over and over in the most dramatic fashion. It's irritating to watch, I understand, particularly for people who are pro-Second Amendment. But it's important to know what the propagandists in the media are doing with this kid. Because, again, the kid can speak out. It's his absolute right to speak out. And obviously, he can speak in front of any camera that he wants to speak in front of. That's great. But he can be criticized just like anyone else. I know. I was 17. I wrote a syndicated column. I got criticized just like everybody else. That's the way free speech works in the country. Okay, here is David Hogg. We're going to go through his full speech, or as much of it as possible.
First off, I'm going to start off by putting this price tag right here as a reminder for you guys to know how much Marco Rubio took for every student's life in Florida. $1.05.
Okay, that is a lie. Just pause it right there again. That's a lie. Okay, the $1.05 thing is a slander against Marco Rubio. It's disgusting. And by the way, if you want to actually come to some sort of agreement about what we can do here, you might want to start by talking to the senator from Florida who's actually proposed legislation with Bill Nelson on protecting schools. This is not designed to help anybody. This is designed to virtue signal. And it's designed in order so that Democrats can feel better about themselves. Okay, Hogg continues.
Grasp of corruption shackles the District of Columbia. The winter is over. Change is here. The sun shines on a new day, and the day is ours.
I don't know what that means.
For the first-time voters show up 18% of the time in midterm elections. Not anymore.
Well, I mean, we don't know the stats yet, so there's that.
Now, who here is going to vote in the 2018 election? If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking. They've gotten used to being protective of their position, choosing the safety of inaction. Inaction is no longer safe. And to that we say, no more.
Okay, pause right there for 1 second. Okay, I just want to point something out. The generic ballot over the weekend closed to about 5 points. It had been up to 12, I believe. One of the reasons it's closing is because Republicans are looking at this kind of demagoguery and they're saying, fine, I'll go out and vote. Right before, the question was, would Republicans go out and vote in any significant numbers? And there is no reason to think Republicans would. It's an off-year election. There's no real galvanizing issue. You want to galvanize Republicans, tell them that you're going to take away their guns and that they're evil people who want to murder children if they don't let you take away their guns. You want to know why that ballot gap is closing? It's because every time the media decide to go on a crusade against Second Amendment rights, there are a bunch of Americans say, fine, I'll finally get off my duff and go vote. Okay, so before David Hogg declares victory, especially on the gun control issue, he should recognize a couple of things. One, Democrats in power have not passed any gun control. Barack Obama passed zero gun control between 2009 and 2011 when he had full control of Congress. And two, Republicans are actually going to show up in broader numbers thanks to this sort of demagoguery than they would otherwise. Okay, we can continue.
96 people die every day from guns in our country, yet most representatives have no public stance.
Okay, pause it for 1 second. Okay, first of all, 96 people die in our country every day. 66 of those people die from suicide. Okay, 2/3 of all the people who are lumped into the gun violence statistics are suicides. Second of all, the vast majority of people who are killed with guns in the United States are killed with handguns. The proposals that have been pushed by March for Our Lives students have nothing to do with handguns. They have to do with AR-15s and so-called assault rifles. Okay, so none of this makes any sense on a policy level. Continue.
And to that, we say no more.
Yeah. Okay, this kind of virtue signaling.
We're going to make this the voting issue. We're going to take this to every election, to every state and every city. We're going to make sure the best people get in our elections to run, not as politicians, but as Americans. Because this is not cutting it. When people try to suppress your vote, and there are people who stand against you because you're too young, we say no more. When politicians say that your voice doesn't matter because the NRA owns them, we say no more.
Okay, so we can stop it there. I don't need to listen to the rest of this. Okay, so first of all, the yelling and the screaming. I know there are a lot of young kids who think that when they do this, that this is actually just showing passion on the podium. It doesn't. It's not convincing. It doesn't make people like you. It doesn't make people rally behind you. In fact, calmness and reason actually make people rally behind you more than screaming from the podium. Again, this whole thing that the NRA owns politicians, it's just not true, but I guess that's not the point. The point here is, of course, to demagogue the issue as much as humanly possible. It wasn't just David Hogg who did this. At the end of it, he gave sort of a revolution symbol. The person who did this the best, actually, I will say, Emma Gonzalez is the most skilled politician of these kids. Emma Gonzalez went up there. She spoke for about 1:20, and then she did a 5-minute just standing break, right? She stood there and she said, in tribute to my classmates, moment of silence, and the moment of silence lasted for 5 minutes, and then at 6 minutes, 20 seconds, she said, that's how long the shooting at our school lasted. That was effective theatrics. And she's actually good at this. David Hogg, not particularly good at this. Cameron Kasky is another one of the students from Parkland. Here's what he had to say. Again, this sort of language is not going to endear you to people you have to make agreements with on the issue of gun control.
To the leaders, skeptics, and cynics who told us to sit down and stay silent, wait your turn. Welcome to the revolution.
Okay, if you want to scare gun owners into going out and vote, tell them it's a revolution to take their guns. See how that's going to go. See how it goes when you tell a bunch of gun owners that it's a revolution to take away their firearms, which is really what they're talking about here. Again, all this stuff is great fodder for media members. It's not great fodder for actually fostering any sort of victory